Imagine someone looks you dead in the eye, right after you've started crying, and says, "Careful, she'll send you back to the camps." And everyone around her bursts out laughing. I spent 3 weeks hand painting a tea set as a wedding gift for my best friend of 10 years. That weekend, I found out something I never wanted to know. Some friends are only your friends when nobody else is watching. Here's what happened to me. My name is Mai. My best friend since high school is named Claire. We grew up together in a small Midwestern town, one where almost everyone was white, and I was one of the only Asian and Jewish kids in our entire school. Claire and I were in the same social justice club back in high school. We went to protests together. Earlier this year, she even invited me to a fundraiser for a human rights organization. I never had a reason to doubt her. So when Claire asked me to be her bridesmaid, I said yes without hesitation. And when I found out I'd be hosting part of her bachelorette weekend, an afternoon tea party, I wanted to make it special. I spent 3 weeks hand painting a porcelain tea set as her wedding gift. I planned a menu that blended dishes from my own culture, spring rolls, Filipino pastries, fruit with cheese, alongside a tea I brewed myself, hibiscus, rose, mint, and calamansi. I even chose a pink color scheme because pink was Claire's favorite color. I checked with her and the maid of honor beforehand. Both said it sounded wonderful. Claire even texted me, "I'm obsessed with your spring rolls already." I believed her. I believed her right up until that night. The bachelorette party was held at the groom's family cabin, 4 hours from the city, deep in the woods, no cell signal, no neighbors for miles. The first night went fine. But as the night went on and the drinks kept flowing, the mood started to shift. When I set up the tea table, I noticed a few of the groom's cousins exchange looks, the kind of face people make at food they've decided is weird. One girl grabbed a pastry and chased her friend around with it, laughing that it looked creepy. It was just a cream bun. I didn't say anything. I texted photos of the table to a few other friends, just to ask, did I do something wrong here? Everyone said the same thing. It looks beautiful. What are you talking about? I told myself, maybe this food just isn't for them. I kept serving. But that was only the beginning. The party happened to fall on a date tied to a controversial holiday back in the United States. The joke started there, first about race in general, then they turned toward me directly. Then someone brought up the Nazis, the concentration camps. One of the girls, I'll call her Brooke, said it outright. I make so many Holocaust jokes for someone who isn't racist. I was in the middle of the woods with no car and nowhere to go. I chose to stay quiet, not because I was weak, but because I knew that sometimes silence is how you get through a situation you can't control. Later that night, as I was gathering my things to head up to my room, I heard Brooke turn to another woman there, a friend named Elena who is German, and say, "I'm kind of worried you'll be offended by the Auschwitz jokes since you're German." Elena laughed and said, "No, I'm fine." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I said, "Well, I might be offended since I'm Jewish." I stood up, picked up my bag, and started to leave. And Brooke, right in front of everyone, right in front of Claire, my best friend, laughed and said, "Well, I guess she's going back to Auschwitz then." The whole room laughed. I walked outside into the dark. I cried. Through the window, I could see them, still laughing, still eating the food I had prepared. Not one of my so-called friends came outside to check on me. And the worst part hadn't even happened yet. That came 4 hours later, in the car. If you're still with me, hit subscribe right now, because what she said to me next is even harder to believe. The next morning, I had to ride home with Elena, a 4-hour drive. I was already exhausted. I live with a condition that makes travel and talking drain my energy fast. Elena spent the last hour of that drive lecturing me. She said she was the kind of person who could stay close with people she disagreed with, that not everyone has that skill, especially when the issue feels personal. She told me I needed to put myself in other people's shoes and assume they meant no harm. I told her I didn't want to talk about this right now, that I was too exhausted. She said, "This is my car, and I'm the one driving. I don't want to feel uncomfortable and tense in here. We're talking about this." I have a voice condition that limits how much I can speak, so I mostly stayed quiet, and I didn't want to end up stranded on a highway in the middle of nowhere. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "I didn't know you were Jewish." As if that would have made it okay if she just hadn't known. But I remembered something. Just one day earlier, when someone asked which food was kosher, Elena was the one who told the whole group, "Ask Mai, she'll know. She's Jewish." She knew. She knew before she laughed along with the Holocaust joke. She knew, and she stayed silent anyway. The wedding was scheduled for the following weekend. I could barely see straight from a migraine, and my legs were struggling to hold me up. I asked myself, was I really willing to put my body through more pain for people who couldn't even be bothered to check on me after they laughed about my ancestors being murdered? I sent Claire this message. "I've thought a long time about how to say this. I'm not going to be at your wedding. I could tell you it's because I'm sick, and honestly that part is true, but that wouldn't be the whole truth, and because I've always considered you a close friend, I owe you the real one." I spent this past weekend on the receiving end of hate, and no one said a word or checked on me. I still wish you all the best. I never got a reply. A few hours later, she blocked me on every platform. No explanation. No apology. I left the wedding group chat. I was blocked by both Claire and the maid of honor. But two of the other bridesmaids, women I barely knew, reached out to apologize. They said they hadn't realized how directly it was aimed at me and that they respected my decision. I thanked them. I understood why they hadn't spoken up in a house full of strangers, in the middle of nowhere. But the 10-year friendship I thought was unbreakable ended with a silent block and nothing else. Some people told me I overreacted. But looking back, I think I reacted exactly the way anyone should, after being told to go back to the place where their ancestors were murdered, while the people I called my friends just laughed along. I don't regret skipping that wedding. The only thing I regret is that it took a tea table and a hand-painted set I spent 3 weeks on to finally see the truth. Some people are only your friends when no one else is watching. If you were in my place, would you have gone to that wedding, or would you have walked away like I did? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story kept you watching until the end, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Then subscribe, because there are a lot more stories like this one coming, and you won't want to miss them. 2 weeks before my wedding, my fiancé's best man put on his tuxedo before he even heard our answer. He wanted us to think it was already decided. He wanted us to feel cornered. We didn't back down. And what happened after our wedding day proved we were right to hold the line. My name is Sophie. I'm 27. My fiancé, Daniel, is 31, and we had been planning our wedding for almost a year. Early on, we set one rule for the guest list. If a couple hadn't been together for at least 6 months before the invitations went out, they didn't get a +1. We didn't want strangers standing in our photos on the one day. We were supposed to be surrounded by people who actually loved us. Almost everyone understood, except for one person. Daniel's closest groomsman, a guy named Jake, who had been his best friend since college. Jake had a girlfriend named Vanessa. And Vanessa was, without exaggeration, one of the most exhausting people either of us had ever met. We tried to like her. We really did. We invited the two of them out 4 separate times, hoping it would click. It never did. Every single time, the night ended in a fight between them, right in front of us, loud enough that other tables would turn and stare. By the time the invitations went out, they had broken up and gotten back together 8 times. 8 times in about 2 months. We weren't guessing. Daniel kept track, mostly out of disbelief. Here's the part that really got under my skin. Vanessa found out that Daniel and I had talked privately about maybe inviting her to hang out with me and my friends more, just to give things a real chance. Instead of being grateful, she exploded at Jake. She screamed at him for even discussing it. Then she deleted every single message I had ever sent her, every kind one, every attempt I made to include her, and went crying to Jake that I was ignoring her, that I never made an effort. I still have the messages. Every single one. Every time I reached out, every time I tried to plan something with the two of them. She erased the evidence and rewrote the story, and Jake believed her version over the one he could have simply scrolled up and seen for himself. So when Jake brought up bringing her to the wedding, Daniel and I sat down and talked it through, seriously, for hours. And we said no. We laid out every reason. She didn't respect me, she didn't respect Daniel, and she absolutely did not respect the 6-month rule we'd set for everyone, including our own family members. We didn't want to spend our wedding day managing the chaos she brought into every room she walked into. Jake didn't take it well. He sent us a message saying that either Vanessa was coming or he wasn't. And before he even waited to hear what we'd decide, he went out and put on his tuxedo. He wanted the photo of himself dressed and ready to be the argument. He wanted us to feel like the decision had already been made for us. That made me angrier than almost anything else in this entire situation. Not the ultimatum itself. The assumption that we'd fold the moment he pushed hard enough. We didn't know what to say to him. Jake wasn't just some name on a guest list. He was family to Daniel in every way that mattered. Losing him wasn't a small thing to consider. If you think you already know how this ends, stick around, because the update 2 months later is not what most people expected. Go ahead and subscribe now so you don't miss exactly what Jake did after our wedding day. We held our ground. We told Jake the rule applied to everyone, no exceptions, and that if he chose to skip the wedding over it, that would be his decision to make, not ours to reverse. Our wedding day came, and it was everything I had ever pictured. Genuinely perfect. Vanessa was nowhere near it. Jake stayed for the entire event. I was able to celebrate surrounded by the people who loved us most, without a single moment of the drama I had spent a year dreading. I heard secondhand that Vanessa gave him an earful the moment he got back to her that night. At that point, I couldn't bring myself to care. They had already pushed us to the edge of our patience for months. Whatever happened between them after we said our vows was no longer our problem to carry. Here's the update, 2 months later. Jake stopped speaking to me completely the moment we told him Vanessa wasn't invited. He only ever contacted my husband now, and only to arrange picking up the last of his things from the house they used to share, because he had moved out. He moved in with Vanessa. According to what Daniel has heard from him since, it has been exactly what you'd expect. Screaming matches in front of his own friends and family. Vanessa throwing his belongings out onto the front lawn during arguments, then calling him back an hour later like nothing happened. On and off, over and over, the same pattern that broke up and got back together 8 times before our wedding even happened. We still love him. He's been part of our life for years, and that doesn't just disappear. But at some point, loving someone doesn't mean rescuing them from a situation they keep walking back into. So here's what I keep asking myself. When someone we love keeps choosing the person who's hurting them and keeps expecting us to just go along with it, where is the line between supporting them and enabling them? I'd genuinely like to know what you think, so tell me in the comments. And if this story kept you here until the very end, hit that like button. It tells me you want more of these. Then subscribe, because when Jake and Vanessa finally do break up for good, and everyone who knows them agrees it's only a matter of time, you'll want to be here for that story too.